Hello everyone, welcome back to Little Lottie's Bath & Body. Today we're going to be making our salt bar, which includes 5 oils and lye water, of course, and the star ingredient is Himalayan salt. Another ingredient that I use in this to help give it that beautiful pink color is rose French clay. So as usual, I'm going to start with pouring the lye water into the oil mixture that's been heated up to melt all of the oils, and then I cool it down so the lye water and the oil are around the same temperature, about 80 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. This ensures that we are able to mix it well and that it stays nice and fluid so we can texture the top of the soap and get the salt mixed in before it gets too hard. You can see we get to trace pretty quickly here. And I'm just giving it a good stir, making sure that there's no oils left on the top before we go ahead and mix in the salt. I'm just going to mix it up a little bit more here. I just want to make sure that it's properly mixed, because if it's not, it won't actually turn into a bar of soap that's usable. It will just either be crumbly, or we won't be able to use it because the lye isn't mixed in properly. So now that I'm at trace, I'm just going to clean this off and get all the soap batter as much as I can off of the stick blender. So this is the rose French clay that I've just mixed in with some eucalyptus essential oil, and it doesn't really mix in, I more dispersed it, but it'll mix in well with the soap. It is clay, so it's not going to dissolve. And once I get this mixed in, it should be a nice rose pink color, blush color almost. A dark blush, I guess. And it's really important not to overmix the batter. So whenever you see me stirring with the stick blender as opposed to using it as a blender, that's all I'm doing. I'm just trying to really prevent from overmixing, because that makes the batter too thick and then it's more difficult to work with. So here's all the Himalayan salt. I did have a few clumps in there, but I think I'll be able to break them up. And what I'm doing here is I'm basically making sure that the salt is all covered in the soap batter, so we don't have any chunks of salt left over. Oh, I just saw a piece fling out, so hopefully I don't forget to wipe that off the counter once I'm done. You can see there's a few clumps in there. I'm trying to just break them up. So the recipe that I use for my salt bars is I use 50% salt. So if I have 50 ounces of oils, I'm going to use 25 ounces of the salt. And that's weight measurement, not fluid measurement. So both measuring in weight ounces. This soap is going to be ready to cut in about 2 to 4 hours instead of the normal 24 hours. I had a difficult time getting it out of the mold last time because when the soap is hot, it expands, and it got stuck in the wooden box, and so I had to wait a little bit too long, and then I almost broke my cutter. So what I've done here is I took the silicone liner out of the wooden box, and basically I just set it as a support versus actually holding the liner. Looks like there's another little clump that I didn't get mixed in, but that's okay. The reason why I need to put the wooden boxes next to the soap is simply because the soap is heavy and the liners are very thin. So if I don't put the boxes next to the liner, it will actually bow and I'll have not straight bars. And it doesn't look like they're gonna stay very good, so I think I'm gonna tape them up to just hold them steady. Okay, so I got everything taped up. It's been sitting in the mold for about 15 minutes, waiting for the soap to firm up a bit so I can texture the top. And here I'm just taking a plastic spoon and going real gentle, creating the look that I want on the side, which I want it to resemble waves a little bit and just be nice and smooth and uniform all the way down. This is actually one of my favorite parts about making soap, is deciding what I'm gonna do on the top. Am I gonna add colorful swirls? Am I gonna add glitter? Am I gonna just texture it? This one is one of my favorites because it's kind of simple, and then it has large chunks of Himalayan salt on the top, which I think just give it that extra luxurious look. There, that looks good. So the soap's all textured, and now I'm just gonna put the salt on top. And I just love the texture, the look of this Himalayan salt. I got it from a salt supplier in California, and they have just really, really good quality. This one's my favorite size. This size and a little bit bigger are my favorite sizes, just because you can really see the individual colors of the Himalayan salt. You get that deep maroon, that deep red, you get medium pink, you get light pink, you get some white pieces, and it just gives it a nice variation of color. It's interesting to look at, and it's fun to hold as well. My kids like to sometimes sneak in my salt stash and get some out. That looks like about enough. Sometimes I usually like to put a little bit extra because I know some of it's going to fall off when I cut the soap, and I want to make sure there's still some salt on there for looks. And here's a close-up. If you put the salt on too early, it starts to dissolve. If you put it on too late, it doesn't stick. So you really need to work with your soap and make sure that you're putting it on at the right time when the soap's still wet, but not too wet. Here's another close-up. You can see those nice big chunks of salt on there. And about 2.5 hours later, this is ready to cut. So it's still very warm because when you mix lye and oils, it creates heat. And when you pour it and let it sit, it's taking time to cool off, and then it will cure. The soap that has salt in it, such as this one, a large amount of salt, it's gonna heat up a little bit hotter than normal soap, and it's gonna set up faster and harder. So I had a little bit of a hard time taking it out of the silicone liner. And you'll see how easy this cuts. And those of you who have made salt bars before know that's not common if you cut it after that 2 to 4 hour mark. So the perfect time to cut it is when it's still hot. So if you're having a hard time getting out of your mold at that time, try a different technique. Maybe try using the one that I used, putting the wood or putting some type of straight item next to your silicone mold. That way you can easily move it and be ready to cut it at the right time. I'm trying to figure out which piece to grab because it's still a little bit soft. It's delicate. It's set up, but it's delicate at this point. So, got one little chunk of salt that didn't get mixed up. That's okay. I guess I'll keep this one. Hopefully the rest are good. Looks really nice, really smooth. Like I said, they're very delicate, so I'm very gingerly trying to pull these apart so I don't ruin the edges and the sides. Very nice. So my last salt bar that I made, I actually forgot about it, and I cut it at probably, well, I forgot about it and I couldn't get it out of the mold. So I think it was about 8 hours later that I was able to cut it, and I almost broke my this multi-bar cutter. I almost broke it because I had to push so hard on the handles. So note to self, if you make a salt bar that has a high salt content, don't forget to cut it. Set yourself a timer, whatever you do, because once it's past the point that you can't cut it anymore, you now have a giant 2 or 3 or 4 pound salt bar loaf that you cannot cut. So as far as the salt that I put in it, the Himalayan salt, I like to use a fine or extra fine ground because it's not going to be irritating to your skin. If you use a bigger one like the ones I used on the top, if you use that in the soap, first of all, I don't know that it would cut too well, and also it would be very scratchy on you, I think. I don't know, but it seems like it would be. Last few bars here. See how nicely it cut? So it's very smooth. I've cut salt bars before and they're rough if you wait too long. But this one's very good. So again, just reiterating, salt bars are great, but you gotta remember to cut them. There's another little salt chunk. It's not gonna hurt anything though. Last 2 bars here. Perfect. Thanks so much for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you love it, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Have a wonderful week.